What if the map you have been following for years is not a map at all, just a series of random turns you made on tired days and busy nights? Today, I want to show you how I built a real map for my life, and why it changed everything from my mornings to the way I make tough calls. I used to think I was moving forward because my calendar was full, and my phone kept buzzing. The truth was harsher. I was walking in circles. I said yes to every good thing, and somehow missed the few things that would have made my days feel meaningful. I did not lack effort. I lacked orientation. A pilot without instruments can have perfect eyesight and still get lost in clear weather. That was me. When I finally admitted it, I promised myself I would build my own map, starting from the ground under my feet, not from someone else's route. What follows is the first half of that journey, told in the most practical way I can, because I am writing this as a man who had to learn, sometimes the hard way, how to move with intention. Before I drew anything, I needed to understand what a life map really is. It is not a bucket list. It is not a collection of motivational quotes. A map is a tool that shows terrain, direction, and distance. For me, terrain means who I am and what I value when no one is watching. Direction means what I am moving toward over the next 5 to 10 years. Distance means the milestones that tell me whether I am getting closer or just pacing the same stretch of road. Without all three, I end up guessing. With all three, I make cleaner decisions and waste less energy. I began with values, not goals. Goals are fragile when they do not sit on bedrock. I noticed that when I chased goals born from comparison or fear, I either hit them and felt empty, or missed them and felt ashamed. The fix was not to set smaller goals. The fix was to set goals that grew out of values I could stand on. I asked myself a blunt question. What am I willing to trade comfort for? That cut through a lot of noise. If I was not willing to sacrifice a free evening, a little ego, or an easy task for something, I did not truly value it. To pull my real values into the light, I used a simple exercise that I now repeat every year. I call it the regret rehearsal. I imagine that a trusted friend comes to me on a quiet evening and tells me I have only 1 year to live. Nothing dramatic, just a fact. I let that land. Then I write, without judgment, what I would keep doing, what I would stop doing, and what I would start doing immediately. The items that show up repeatedly in the keep list are living values, not just stated values. The items in the stop list are often obligations I accepted to look good or to avoid conflict. The start list reveals postponed desires that I kept moving into a fictional later. When I first did this, I found that I prized deep work, physical health, a small circle of strong relationships, craft over speed, and truthful communication, even when it made a meeting awkward. That was my bedrock. From there, I crafted a short values statement, written for myself in plain language in the first person so I cannot wriggle out of it. I wrote, I pursue depth over noise. I care more about being useful than being impressive. I protect my health the way I protect my income. I show up for my people even when it is not convenient. And I tell the truth gently but directly. I did not make this sound poetic. I made it sound like instructions. This statement sits at the top of my map because it decides what belongs on the page and what does not. With values clarified, I turn to vision. Vision is not fantasy. It is the most honest picture of the man I aim to be in 5 to 10 years, described in observable terms. I did not write, I want to be happy. I wrote in a way that could be seen in my calendar, my bank statements, my body, my portfolio of work, and my relationships. I asked, if my values are real, how would my days look? How would I work? What would I make? Who would be around my dinner table? What problems would I be solving? What would I be learning and teaching? The first version felt uncomfortable because it forced me to admit the gap between how I was living and how I wanted to live. That discomfort was useful. It gave me fuel. I shaped the vision across a few domains that matter to me: health, relationships, craft, contribution, learning, and finances. I kept the language behavioral and measurable without turning into a robot. For example, in health, I wrote that future me trains with consistency, eats like an athlete even when traveling, and tracks sleep as seriously as deadlines. In relationships, I wrote that future me builds a home that welcomes people, schedules unhurried time with my partner, and creates memories with family that do not require a perfect plan. In craft, I wrote that future me produces work that I am proud to sign, that I choose quality over speed, and that I ship on a dependable cadence. In contribution, I wrote that future me mentors a handful of people, supports one cause in a meaningful way rather than dabbling in many, and gives away frameworks that helped me. In learning, I wrote that future me studies one challenging subject every year, and in finances, I wrote that future me lives below his means and saves and invests with calm instead of chasing hot tips. Again, no poetry, just a clear picture. The next move was to connect that long horizon to the ground. That is where a lot of life maps fail. They either get stuck in the clouds of vision or sink into the swamp of daily tasks. I wanted a bridge. I used a planning rhythm that runs from long horizon to short, like this: a 5 to 10 year vision, an annual theme, quarterly outcomes, weekly priorities, and daily actions. The vision is the compass. The annual theme is the banner I carry for the year. Quarterly outcomes are the rocks I step on to cross the river. Weekly priorities keep me from pretending I can do everything, and daily actions are proof I am moving. Here is how I make the annual theme. I look at my vision and ask what single direction will make the biggest difference this year. One year it was rebuild my body. Another year it was master my craft. Another year it was stabilize and simplify. Naming one theme does not mean I ignore the others, but it forces me to aim. Once I have the theme, I mark any commitments I am already carrying, like travel, family events, or major work cycles. I am careful here because a theme like rebuild my body dies if I let my calendar fill like it did before. A theme is not a word on paper. It is a filter that refuses most requests so that the right ones get a full yes. With a theme in place, I name a small set of quarterly outcomes. I limit myself to a handful because more than that becomes a wish list, and wish lists do not survive contact with reality. Each outcome is written as a result, not a task. For example, instead of write a lot, I wrote publish a series of essays that teach my approach to building a life map, complete with templates and examples. Instead of workout, I wrote complete a cycle of strength and conditioning with tested improvements in basic lifts and work capacity. Instead of learn a new thing, I wrote complete a structured course of study in one complex topic with notes and a project. The quarterly window is long enough to do meaningful work and short enough to stay honest. Now I am ready to move from planning to prioritizing, and this is where I needed real structure. I built a simple exercise that I still use at the start of every quarter and again at the start of every week. I call it the 3 buckets of energy. The idea is basic. I imagine I have 3 equal buckets of focused energy for the week. I choose 3 things that will receive those buckets. I'm allowed to add maintenance tasks around them, but any new commitment has to steal energy from a bucket I already named. That constraint keeps me sane. If I try to pour those buckets into 6 or 7 things, everything gets damp and nothing grows. When I choose 3, I can finish. My 3 could be finish the research draft, complete the next cycle of training sessions, and produce the first video module. If an exciting invitation arrives, I do not say yes by default. I ask, which bucket will I drain to feed this? If the answer is none, then my answer is no for now. Let me make this even more concrete with a week that went well for me. My quarterly outcomes at the time included shipping a guide, an exercise set for life mapping, completing a health training cycle, and refactoring my daily routines to align with my values. My 3 weekly buckets were build the guide, complete all scheduled training sessions with attention to sleep and nutrition, and finish the draft of a morning and evening routine that I could test for a month. I blocked time on my calendar for deep work on the guide, treated training sessions like meetings with my future self, and protected bedtime the way I protect a client call. I used an index card on my desk and wrote the 3 buckets in clear ink. Every time I felt the urge to check messages or add a new project, I looked at the card. It sounds overly simple, but it saved me hours. At the daily level, I use a practice I learned from painful trial and error. I pick one mission for the day. That does not mean I do only one thing. It means I name the one thing that will move a bucket forward in a tangible way. If I finish only that, the day counts. I set the mission the evening before. I remove friction by preparing what I can. If the mission is to write the next section of a guide, I open the document, outline the section, and leave a sentence half written so I can glide into it in the morning. If the mission is a heavy training session, I pack the bag, set out the gear, and plan the meal. The next day, I aim to protect the first 90 minutes for that mission. If life interferes, I schedule a second window later. When the mission is complete, I mark it, and then fill the remaining time with maintenance tasks. So far, this all sounds clean on paper. Real life is rarely clean. That is why I built a habit of autopsies. On Fridays, I review the week. I ask what worked, what did not, and why. I do not scold myself. I look for patterns. If I repeatedly miss morning deep work, I examine my evening routine. If I keep abandoning a certain project, maybe it does not match my values or my theme. If every week I am overestimating what I can do, I cut the number of tasks and increase the size of the blocks. I have found that honesty in these reviews produces more progress than any app or tool. The most powerful productivity tool I own is a clear yes and a clear no. To keep my map alive, I add one more layer, a simple scoreboard tied to my values. This is not a gamified system. It is a short check each night. I ask, did I live my values today? Did I pursue depth over noise? Was I useful more than impressive? Did I protect my health? Did I show up for my people? Did I tell the truth gently and directly? I answer with a simple yes, no, or partial. Then I add one sentence of reflection. If the answer is no, I plan one small repair for the next day. This turns values from words into behavior. Now, I promised a practical exercise to help define life priorities. Here is one I rely on when I feel pulled in too many directions. It takes a quiet hour and some paper. First, I write the 5 areas that contain most of my life: health, relationships, craft, contribution, and finances. If another area matters to you, you can add it, but I keep the list short on purpose. Second, I score my current satisfaction in each area using only words like poor, fair, good, very good, and excellent, and I write one sentence explaining why. Third, I ask a future self question for each area. What is the single shift in the next 90 days that would make the biggest difference here? I write one shift per area. Fourth, I circle the top 3 shifts that would create ripple effects across multiple areas. Fifth, I turn those 3 into weekly buckets and daily missions. This is not complicated, but it is decisive. When I follow it, I stop reacting and start moving. Let me show how this looked in my own life during a season when I was stretched. Health was fair because I was inconsistent. Relationships were good, but I felt rushed. Craft was good, but scattered. Contribution was fair because I was saying yes to too many small requests. Finances were good, but not improving. The single shifts I wrote were a simple training program and consistent sleep, a weekly unhurried dinner with my partner, and a monthly afternoon with family. A focused series of essays aligned with my MAP framework, a boundary around pro bono time with a single cause, and a monthly review of spending and saving. The top three were the training and sleep, the focused essay series, and the weekly dinner. Those became my buckets. Over the next weeks, the ripple effects were obvious. Better sleep improved my focus and patience. The dinner relieved a low-grade anxiety that always followed me into work. The focused series started a feedback loop with readers that improved my thinking and created opportunities I had not anticipated. An important warning: when you create a map, you will likely discover commitments that no longer fit. Letting them go can feel like failure or betrayal. It is neither. It is pruning. A tree that tries to keep every branch starves the fruit. I learned to end some projects kindly and clearly. I told people the truth. I said I had sharpened my focus and could no longer continue with a certain role or recurring meeting. I offered a handoff if needed. Most people respected the clarity. The few who did not confirmed that I had made the right move. The energy and time I reclaimed powered the priorities that mattered. As my map took shape, I noticed something subtle but powerful. Decisions became lighter. I still faced hard choices, but I didn't carry them alone. My values and vision carried them with me. When a shiny offer arrived, I set it against the map. If it pulled me off course, I said no without